Good evening, good morrow, and good day, and welcome to another campaign diary and Q&A here on Slice and Dice, talking all about everything that's gone down in the last 5 sessions in the Manylands campaign, which just so happens to be all of the sessions so far in 2021 with the new schedule. So a lot to unpack, a lot to go through. If you have not been able to catch up with the campaign so far, by all means, you can find all of the old episodes right from the beginning of the campaign on our YouTube channel. Subscribe now. There's a link to that on our Twitch page. Just scroll down, you'll see catch up just below the video and the YouTube logo. Click on that, it'll take you directly to our YouTube channel, so you can subscribe there and watch to your heart's content and at your leisure. As I said, this will be going through everything in sessions 61 through 65, our most recent sessions. So if you've missed those ones, this should hopefully give you a roundup of everything that's happened. Please do get in the chat with your questions, and not only get in the chat for that reason, but also, as you can see by the display here, our first giveaway of 2021 is off with our friends at Burnt Beautiful, who are giving away a one-of-a-kind personalized slice and dice box. In fact, I have one here. Hang on one second. Grab it. I have one right here, which is my own personal one. I bought this one myself, and you can see, hello Topper Turtle. You can win yourself a personalized dice box. This is mine, which says the adventure of 1,000 dice begins with a single roll, and on the reverse of the opening you have the Slice and Dice logo. So you can have whatever logo, whatever writing or image you want within reason. You can work that out with Holly, the pyrography artist, who is behind Burnt Beautiful. And as Topper Turtle's just done, you can enter the competition, the giveaway right now, by writing fire in the chat. I appreciate the flames as well, Topper Turtle. Thank you for that. I will be announcing the winner at the beginning of our next session of the Manylands campaign, which is in over a week's time. So you've got a whole week to enter via socials as well, but you enter now on the stream, you'll be entered into the draw already. And you can still enter via socials as well. You can double up your chances if that's what you want to do. Follow us at Slice and D6 on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, any of those to enter the competition. And there's also, you'll see the post, there'll be a new one going live on Monday, a new entry post, which you just have to like. I think if it's on Twitter, you can retweet it for an extra entry, all that good stuff. As I said, at the beginning of our next Manylands session, which is on the 22nd of March, I will be announcing the winner of that dice box. Very exciting times. Okay, so aside from that, I should say, I think, last shameless plug before we get into things today. If you've been enjoying our content here on Slice and Dice, we really appreciate it, first of all, and thank you for joining us for all of our different campaigns, for the Manylands, for the Cage, for our chats here, for Don't Believe the Hype. Speaking of which, we've got a new Don't Believe the Hype video coming to YouTube in the next couple of weeks. Make sure you're subscribed to us on YouTube so you don't miss that. I'll be talking all about all of the different optional class features in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. So if you have not got yourself a copy of Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, definitely that's a video for you, in case one of your players maybe has come up to you and said, hey, I'd like to use some of these optional features, and you've gone, I don't know what that is. That video should help you. So make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube to see that go live when it does. I've finished editing it now, so just need to export it and then find a suitable time in our calendar to upload that. So that is to come soon enough. But if you have been enjoying our content and want to support the channel in other ways, of course, please do subscribe to us here on Twitch. You'll see all of the perks you get with subscribing just below the video. It's the first panel. It's a very colourful panel with a beautiful map behind us, as you can see here. Outlining all of the different tiers, the adventurer, the demigod tiers, which is the top tier, and I'm missing one in all of the excitement, the hero tier, adventurer, hero, and demigod tiers, all with different great perks for you. And I keep working on content in my spare time to give to our subscribers, like adventure PDFs and things like that, because apparently D&D is taking over my life. Great. So anyway, that aside, let's go through what happened in the sessions thus far. So in back in session 61, we left things at an interesting point going into 61 because the group had come across Master Talon, the leader of the Aarakocra monastery, who had escaped from the monastery itself, which is inside kind of almost an inactive volcano kind of style, a mountain with an open top. Which has been taken over by manticores. The master had managed to escape through turning into a gaseous form and floated on down into a secret chamber within the mountain. The party found her and managed to revive her, heal her wounds, and help her to ascend back to the top. She showed them a secret way, a back entrance into her chambers up in the Eyrie itself, which is very much an open plan, like I said, hollowed out inside of a mountain, with these kind of small-ish crenellations, or caverns, which take the form of each Aarakocra's quarters. So it's very much open plan, communal living, and at the very center of this open area is a lake, and hovering above it is this little island with a tree on it, which obviously this rocky island should not be floating there. It's defying gravity, but it seems that the Eyrie has a very deep connection to the element of air, and as such the monks there, the Aarakocra, are trying to harness some of that power of air, and some of them display some of those powers, including Master Talon, because ultimately these Aarakocra have congregated here because they want to get back to the elemental plane of air, which they feel is where they came from, where they belong. So anyway, the party got up to the master's quarters, where they got a great vantage point sneakily, because the manticores were not aware that they had come up that way, to get a good look at their surroundings, and found over a dozen manticores there. And this had been built up for a long time in the campaign. They had been aware for many sessions at this point that they were going to come across a lot of manticores, and that they did. But their expectations were somewhat subverted, really, when things kind of went a bit sideways with that, which has kind of come about due to the party's actions as much as anything else, due to certain characters getting away and observing their actions and that sort of thing. So the party were aware that the manticores were being led by some kind of druid, a lady. They didn't get much information about them, but it was quite sketchy. But they had Leoborin spotted this giant eagle within the tree hovering at the centre when they were looking out. Leoborin at this point had just cast Major Image and made the Major Image of a dragon appear in the centre of the Eyrie, causing absolute pandemonium. These manticores immediately started panicking, thinking an ancient dragon had come here to take this place for themselves, and they haven't seen dragons for hundreds of years, so this was clearly very scary. But this eagle seemed to understand what Leo was doing, kind of eyeballed him, and that's when the party put two and two together. This might be the druid. Unfortunately, before they could do anything about it, it laughed and then flew away out of the top of the Eyrie. This, unsurprisingly, this giant eagle has been met before. And this very same one, the party was keeping an eye on the party when they were searching for Flaming Jack, or Jack Van Winklebottom, after finding Flaming Jacks had been burned down by the Red Mages. So it seemed that this giant eagle was keeping an eye on the party. This druid was keeping an eye on the party at that point when they appeared from the forest, which seemed a bit strange, but the party didn't really think much of it. Turns out it was the same giant eagle, but why? Who could it be? What's their connection? Maybe you can join the dots on that one. So the party are seeing this and then trying to coordinate how they're going to deal with the manticores. They come up with the great idea of the distraction of the dragon, and then Brucon, being the speediest of monks, because he's not only a level 5 or 6 monk, but he also has the boots of speed. Now the boots have been damaged, so they only work for 1 minute as opposed to 10 minutes. However, even with that boost of speed, he can drop himself down to the floor because they're about 30 feet up the entrance to this to the master's chambers, because Aarakocra don't need stairs. But fortunately, being that Brucon is of a level, he can drop down and use his slow fall ability to basically negate any damage he takes from falling. Just insane. And meant that he could drop to the floor and then speed across to the storage area where the prisoners were being held, and then try and liberate them whilst this distraction was going on. The rest of the party weren't really sure exactly what they were going to do to help at this point. But before they could do much else, suddenly they see a dragon-like head appearing at the top of the mountain. Now, fortunately, smaller than an actual dragon. Unfortunately, more than one of them. As it turned out, there were some dragonborn wyvern riders from the neighbouring Rachir had got wind of what was going on here and decided to descend and attack the manticores. Just as this is happening, Naeris is setting off a fireball at one of the manticores. I think Seth also manages to get an attack away at the leader, Manylands, who descended to attack as well. And basically, it all starts kicking off. But given that this party worked really well together as a unit, there was unfortunately opportunities where they had to end up being split up, and most, of their own accord, Brucon went off on his own, but then suddenly the rest of the party were getting pulled this way and that due to the actions next, because it seemed that whilst the Wyvern Riders were dealing with some of the manticores, they also seemed to take a particular interest in our sorceress, in Naeris, the high elf sorcerer, who, for those of you who don't know, who have not seen the Twitch extension for D&D Beyond, Naeris is a dragonborn. She's an elf sorcerer with the draconic bloodline, and they seem to take a particular interest in that, essentially trying to abduct her, move her to one side of the Eyrie, and then fend off other attackers from her. Meanwhile, the rest of the Aarakocra see this as their opportunity. Some of the Aarakocra patrols were captured by the party and then let go on the condition that they would then help them overthrow the manticores when the time came. And they came good on that promise. They would start chanting and summoning air to kind of formed a kind of swirling, almost tornado-like effect on the outside of the Eyrie, and then sort of in the eye of that being the centre of the Eyrie, which actually ended up injuring the party just as much as it ended up injuring the bad guys. It was quite chaotic. There was a lot going on. Malar, Leo, and Seth, meanwhile, end up fighting toe-to-toe with a group of manticores. It's really touch and go for the three of them. I think at least two of them go down and then have to be picked up again. Meanwhile, Breena, the newest addition to the party, our deep gnome wizard, who also befriended the Aarakocra Kerr, and Seth made a kind of rudimentary papoose for the Aarakocra to carry the gnome in, meaning that she could also get some air. She could fly around inside his papoose, thanks to Kerr. So she then decided to fly over and help Brucon try and free the prisoners, because he seemed to be struggling. And it's about that time that then Brucon drops or sets off even, whilst keeping on him, his smoking bottle, which then obscures the area further. So absolute madness going on at this time during the battle. Anyway, eventually Seth manages to slay Manylands as he's squaring off against him, supported by Leoborin and Malar. But both of them, both the other two, I think at this point had been either knocked unconscious or were severely bleeding. They were not doing well, thanks to Manylands' attacks. But Seth manages to slay him, finishes him off, and after their leader is killed, it seems the rest of the manticores don't have much of a will to fight, and so try to flee. One manages to escape out of the top. However, the rest are taken apart by the Wyvern Riders, and things settle down just at this point. The Aarakocra stop their chanting, the winds die down, and then we're left with the party facing these wyvern riders, these kind of two different forces, not really sure if they're on the same side, but have been quite suspicious about their keenness and their interest in Naeris. And it was. Topper Turtle says yes, it was a tough fight. It really was. There was a lot going on because we had the party split. One of the kind of tips and tricks for DMing is not always split the party, but sometimes it's good to split the party just to give them a different kind of test, make them think differently about a combat situation, because you don't want combats to become stale and repetitive. And so, changing up how you do it, whether it's they split this way, whether there's certain environmental effects or hazards, things like that, variety is the spice of life, and I think that's especially true of combats in D&D. So some of the party, including Brucon, had some sort of scuffle with the Wyvern Riders already, but really just trying to liberate Naeris. But they kind of reach a stalemate and are then enter into sort of kind of a negotiation, just communication at the very least, with these Wyvern Riders, who accuse the party of being spies sent from Burikrin. This is their source apparently had told them that they were spies working with the Manticores, and so that's why they seemed quite surprised and confused by this group of individuals fighting against the Manticores. However, they don't seem particularly convinced by the party's words, despite Breena using her wand Irrefutable to cast Zone of Truth. It's a very special version of Zone of Truth, because not only does it make you, if you fail the save, make you unable to lie, but it means you actually have a compulsion to tell the truth. So you can't knowingly hide information as well, which can cause some hilarious and sometimes quite useful results. And despite this, the Dragonborn seemed quite dubious about the party, and it's only after Master Talon intervenes and says that she vouches for this group, that they came to save the Eyrie, that the Dragonborn kind of soften their stance a bit. They're also their suspicions are not helped by the fact that Naeris seemingly disappears under their watch when Brucon approaches with his ever-smoking bottle. Whilst Naeris is under that and Breena is there with her as well, Breena casts invisibility on her, so that then Naeris can try to escape. And escape she does. She gets out of the Eyrie on her own while these negotiations are going on, with the agreement that she would meet the group back in Hilberg. That's what Seth manages to communicate with her through message. So that's what she agrees to do, while the rest of them negotiate with the Dragonborn. They wish to take Naeris before their king, because she bears the mark of Ushtag the Deceiver. That is the line there. And in fact, it's actually, I've got a little clip here that probably gives you a bit more clarity on what that means.
Did you do that?
Have you not seen the eyes, the scale on her skin? It is not normal for an elf to have those kind of features. Do you not agree?
I mean, of the elves I know, one has gills. I'm really not in a position to judge what's normal for elves.
Well, that as may be, that is the sign of Ushtag, the Deceiver. You know your history. You know the dragons used to hold dominion over the whole of the Manylands. No?
I think I was drunk in that lesson. That's good.
Yeah. So as outlined there, the Dragonborn are very keenly aware that the Manylands was formed. In essence, it was first held dominion by the dragons back in the First Age. Ushtag the Deceiver, the great red dragon, then held dominion of the entirety of the Manylands when he, in some way, with some managed to slay some of the other dragons, and others managed to trick them out of their territories. Using all manners to basically, end up taking over the entirety of the Manylands, or at least the vast majority of it. And so it's very interesting, the Dragonborn history in the Manylands. They were created by the dragons. They're probably the oldest of the known races in the Manylands, civilized races anyway, being formed by the dragons, and so they're aware of their history with that, but also they're proud of their history, but also ashamed as well with Ushtag, and obviously fighting against the other free peoples of the Manylands before he was overthrown. And so anyone now bearing the symbol of Ushtag is considered to be a threat of some sort, and so must be brought before the king of Rachir, because to decide exactly what should be done with that individual. Basically, the worship of Ushtag has been outlawed in Rachir, though they worship all of the other dragon gods, which is something pretty uncommon in the Manylands. The main religion, as those of you who know the game will already be aware of, the Eight is the main pantheon of gods in the Manylands. That's the main faith in the Manylands. The dragon gods, again, it's exclusive really to the dragonborn, who have various shrines to each of the dragon gods. However, due to a lot of historical differences and incidences that have occurred because of worshippers of Ushtag in Rachir, as I said, it has been outlawed to worship Ushtag. He's seen as a malevolent deity and should not be worshipped in their country. So that's exactly why Naeris is somebody that they're particularly interested in. So in the beginning of session 62, we continue the negotiations. The lead negotiator of the Dragonborn reveals himself to be Dres Lambold, of House Lambold, and it's notable that most of the Dragonborn have a kind of variations of kind of clay, copper, orangey brown skin tone to their scale tone. Complexion, and but each have some scales which are of a different color, and that extra color will denote their Dragonborn heritage. And it was noticeable with Dres that he had some blue scales, denoting perhaps that he has of the blue Dragonborn lineage. Important for mechanical things and other reasons as well. There's a lot of a kind of back and forth, and actually Seth is the one to take the lead in the negotiation, which I was a little surprised at, by pointing out that basically the Dragonborn aren't willing to let the party leave, or at least not, or if failing that, are not going to let the prisoners that the heroes have come to liberate. The Dragonborn won't let the prisoners leave unless the party go and retrieve Naeris and bring her back to them. Thanks to Seth's negotiation, pointing out, if you don't want to start a war, then, these prisoners we're going to have to tell the families of these prisoners that you're keeping them hostage. That's a hostile move. Very well reasoned, uncharacteristically almost reasoned. No, it was well reasoned by Seth. Eventually they concede and agree that only one of the party must stay behind, and all the prisoners may leave. So Brucon, the monk of the group, in a monastery, fascinated by not only one of the weapons he picked up, a tonfa, martial arts kind of club, but also so fascinated by the weapons, fascinated by the attunement to the elements here, and just what else he could learn from Master Talon. He feels like that's somebody he should have a conversation with. Agrees to stay behind, while everyone else ends up leaving with the prisoners in tow. And the prisoners were all small folk. They were either small races like halflings, gnomes, that sort of thing, or there was also children as well. One of these was Will Tinder, a child, the son of Bracken Tinder, who's a member of the Moonrunners, which the group have arranged to meet up with at the foot of the mountain at a disclosed, an agreed location, with some wagons to be able to transport the prisoners back to Hilberg. And also amongst the prisoners is, he was mentioned earlier insignificant character, the one that, in fact, the Manticores, unbeknownst to them, were really looking for, Jackman Winklebottom, once proprietor of Flaming Jack's Bar and Grill. And during the walk back, or the descent of the mountain, they have various conversations about about what Jackman's going to do next now that his pub has been burned down. There is a kind of love-hate relationship, I feel, between the party and Jackman. More love from him and more hate from them. But, you know, it is how it is. He doesn't seem too bothered about it. And there's one suggestion that takes his interest.
Going to Hillberg, I suppose I could probably find a place there.
No! 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 Go back to the arse end of nowhere and build your fucking pub. No!
Maybe he could turn your house into a pub. And so while we're not there, he can manage a pub in the house. And if we ever come to Hillberg, we have a pub house.
If you are saying this out loud, that's a great idea, by the way.
It's a fantastic idea. Brucon from, like, the other side of the chamber, you hear Brucon shout, "Love it! Yes!"
Other side of the you just hear it from the other side of the mountain. Yes!
Ooh. So yeah, it's an intriguing proposition, and Jackman definitely lights up at that. And that's one of the that something like that, because that has now transpired. We find in session 65 he turns up at the house, like, oh, I'd like to come and view the place. One of the wonderful things about role-playing games in general, like D&D, is having these interactions that then story builds off of, or, you know, it changes the world around you. And so that suggestion that Jackman could use their house, which they've been given, which, in fairness, they didn't really want the house in the first place. It's very large. It would be a great place for a pub, but it's not something I ever thought of when I first offered the house to them. I didn't think this would be turned into an inn, but that's a great idea. That's fantastic. And now it looks like that's going to happen, subject to negotiation in the next session. We shall see exactly how that transpires. But just a great little moment there. And we also saw some other recurring characters. So we met up again with Belle Quigley, who's also of the Moonrunners, a sort of French gnome from Loranlas originally, and her brother, the druid Bantam Quigley, who had already escaped from the Eyrie, and then had helped the party to some extent on their traversing ascent up the mountain. As well as some other characters from earlier in the campaign as well. Meanwhile, Naeris has snuck off ahead, and has managed to descend the mountain ahead of the rest of the group, and then found her horse Louse still put up where he'd been left at this small cave mouth, where Fleeting had also been left. This is due to Fleeting Look, the turquoise tiefling paladin of the party, who had died actually in a fight against a giant snake and its brood, and then had been revived thanks to Malar's Revivify, although costing a 1,000 gold piece diamond because they couldn't break that down to a smaller segment, which was really tragic. But they had to save their friend, and they did so. But he seemed to be in a coma after the spell was used. And so they decided to kind of let him rest, and they'd put up a little place for him. And Breena had set the alarm spell on it so that they would know if an intruder came in or came out of that area, or in fact if Fleeting had moved in or out of the space. And at one point in one of the earlier sessions, I think it's session 60, it did go off. So they knew something had moved down there. So when Naeris appears, she finds Louse, her horse. She finds Horsey, which is Seth's horse, appropriately named, and the dire capybara, which, as we know, belongs to Fleeting Look, and then found Fleeting himself dangling from the ceiling. He seems to have awoken and then put himself up so that he can rest in his inverted fashion, which is his usual way of sleeping. And he reveals that his hammer is missing, which it wasn't before, and he hasn't left the cave, which is alarm bells for Naeris, thinking somebody's been here and taken his hammer. That's very odd. But no matter, she decides to grab her horse Louse and ride back to Hilberg so she can go stay with her uncles and kind of lay low until the party return, leaving Fleeting there to pass on the message when the others arrive. Sure enough, they do, and this is where they decide to. Once picking up Fleeting Look, that they then decide to kind of go off a slightly different course to how they had got there, in the hopes of getting to the arranged meet point with the Moonrunners. Now, one thing I have forgotten, a very important point for Breena, our Deep Gnome wizard, was that she had been tasked with going to that mountain in the first place, along with the rest of the party, because of the tree, the trunk that does not belong, which Fleeting had also been told about by Ominack, God of Truth, or as he's otherwise known, Keith. And Breena had been told to take that wand to that tree, because legend has it that the wand was made from a branch of that tree. So she uses her friend Kerr for one last time before they part company. Before leaving the Eyrie, to fly up to that point and insert her wand into the tree. Now, I should have had this clipped really, because it's a really important moment. But there is one sort of cut off branch, stump, I guess, sticking out of the tree, just the right size for her wand. She touches it, and suddenly, all around her, kind of the landscape changes, and she can see shadowy outlines of 8 figures watching over her. Turns out that these are the 8 gods, and she recognizes the voice of Keith, recognizes some of the outlines of some of the others, but it is not a happy conversation. Whilst Keith is very pleased that Breena got there, they're also speaking as if Breena can't hear them, as if they can't see her. As if Breena can't see them. He's very pleased that, see, I told you they'd do it. It then sounds there's a lot more negative feedback from the rest of the gods. Don't seem overly impressed. And Keith also seems very keen on. He wants to tell them about. He wants to tell the party about what's to come, and then is warned by the other gods that to do that will change events. You can't tell them what lies in the future, because that will change the future as a result. That's not how it works, which is a nice little literary get-out clause there. But also, sort of opening things up for what is to come in the future for this group. And when this interaction ends, Breena finds her wand has now turned into a quarterstaff. Whilst the rest of the group probably don't know this at this point, because she hasn't really done much with it at this point, there are various things that that this wand can now do. So it can switch between being in quarterstaff form or being in wand or staff form, depending on what she wants to do. When it's in staff form, she can essentially use it like an immovable rod. She can use it. She can just click a button and it will stay in place, and will not be able to move unless an excessive amount of force is pushed behind it to try and move it. But I think the drawback is she cannot cast spells. She needs to, with it as a material component, she has to have it in wand form to then cast spells. So it's just another extra thing that this can do, and it's a magical quarterstaff. I think it allows her to use. I think it allows her to use her intelligence modifier. Actually, no, it doesn't. It doesn't do that. But it's a +1 quarterstaff in effect. But it may well attain more powers as she levels. We shall see. An important artifact nonetheless. So the group reunite with Fleeting, and they find out about what Naeris is up to before they all start heading through the trees to the Moonrunner meeting. And that is where session 63 picks up. In 63, they meet with the Moonrunners. There is a kind of a tearful greeting between Bracken Tinder, who's waiting there, and his son Will. But before the party parts ways with the Moonrunners, Breena has one last obligation. Will has kind of befriended Breena in the walk down from the mountain, being somebody of an equivalent height, but also somebody with really impressive powers and a playful, fun, and just generally just the nicest bean kind of nature. That's Breena. And she had promised Will that she was going to show him how to fly, because she has recently learned the fly spell, and had promised him that she would use it. So the moment comes, she tries to cast it on both of them, and then realizes she hasn't got enough magical power to do that yet. So because it's only level 5, no, it's only level 6. So she instead casts it on herself, and then he has to hang on to her, and then flies him around, and it's all great fun. It's all very whimsical, and then finally, after that little interlude, he gets on the cart along with the rest of the prisoners, or once prisoners, should I say, and they head off on their merry way. The party then decide to split further at this point as well, with Fleeting and Seth being the two with horses, or a dire capybara in Fleeting's case, decide that they should ride ahead to Hilberg to try and catch up with Naeris, just in case, anything bad should happen with her, or also just to kind of get ahead and tell her what the agreement is and what's coming. While the other three, Leoborin, Breena, and Malar, decide to sleep for the night in the kind of barn area at the Moonrunner meeting. Waking up, the three of them, the other two, should I say, find Malar has done a little breakfast spread, because it is a very special day for Malar. It is his birthday, as you can imagine, an important day, and for the cleric of the party, the Loxodon cleric, a holy day as well. And he is blessed by the gods with 2 luck points that he can spend during the day, and it's fortunately his birthday seems to span the next 2 sessions, so that's really handy, and has plenty of opportunities to use those luck points. And then the three of them, part of the plan is that they're going to head back to Breena's home of Sverfhaven, so that they can deliver the recipe that they had attained from Master Talon for the potion of cure curse. They were hoping there was going to be a potion itself at the master's chambers in her chest, but unfortunately, there was no potion there, and even the master was confused by this, because there should have been, but suspects that one of the exiled Aarakocra, who was once a member of the monastery, may well have taken it, and that's kind of seems to be the last we've seen of that for now. But anyway, so with no potion themselves, they need to go back to Sverfhaven to talk to Breena's mother, who's the lead alchemist there, and the Sverfs are well-known brewers of potions. They're not well-known brewers, but they are masterful brewers, very secretive. They live underground, far underground, and don't have much contact with the surface world. They used to have contact with the Aarakocra, but not much else, as far as we know. So the three of them decide to head back to Breena's home, but it proves pretty difficult to find it at first, and so they spend quite a lot of time retracing their steps trying to find it. But they do eventually, and unfortunately Malar is too big as a unwieldy Loxodon to fit into the tunnel, so decides to stay up top and wait while Leoborin and Breena go down to see Sverfhaven and to deliver the recipe. Unfortunately, it turns out that there is one principal ingredient to brew the potion that is missing, that being ginseng, and it only grows on the surface, so on the surface world, should I say. So the two of them regroup with Malar and head back to Hilberg. Meanwhile, Fleeting and Seth have found Naeris in Hilberg. She's been keeping herself entertained, talking to her uncle, seeing how he's getting on, and she's also told that her uncle has bought her something to help protect her, which should be delivered that day, so he would go and collect it and give it to her later on in the day. Seth and Fleeting show up, wanting to take her back to their house at the other end of the town, and also Seth has hatched an idea to try and assist Naeris with her pyro abilities, her pyrokinetic abilities, because she has since she died, I know. And then was brought back to life via a dark ritual back in session 13. She's whenever she casts a spell that deals fire damage, she is engulfed in flame herself, and it can sometimes harm the party around her. So Seth has had an idea to try and help with her with that situation.
You what?
There's a swing down in the creek.
Yeah. Let's go catch fireflies.
Yeah. Go on, what's your suggestion, Seth?
When we were fighting the manticores, you looked like you were holding back on using your fire powers, and instead chose to use a bow and arrow.
Because I was near people and I didn't want you to be singed by my fieriness.
I thought we could try and practice your fieriness to make sure that you so that you wouldn't burn us.
I'm not.
No deal.
I don't know.
Yeah, no deal. But no, she does agree, and there has some moderate success actually over the course of the day, just trying to concentrate and try and quell her fire around her body when she casts fire spells. So yeah, an interesting point, and it did force me to then look up the sorcerer class and be like, hang on, what happens with draconic bloodline sorcerers? Is there something maybe that will reflect this kind of ability maybe as she levels? Maybe there's something in there, and perhaps there is something that there's a natural progression, but we'll see what happens with that. Meanwhile, back in the Eyrie, Brucon awakes, and then after having a mild sort of celebration with the Arakok, or as much of a celebration as these kind of ritualized, very sort of stoic monks would exhibit, as far as celebrations go. He awakes and trains with the monks. He had a long conversation with Master Tal in the previous evening, discussing about the balance, because he was seeing visions before arriving at the Eyrie about an imbalance there, and that had driven him to want to go there. And Talon offers her views on what could cause that, including that perhaps it is one of the gods that has guided them there. Perhaps as he is a monk of the Barkfang Monastery, it could be that this is like a part of whatever god it is that directs the monks in terms of the battle between light and dark. He's meant to be, as a monk, is a guardian of the light against the dark, and perhaps it is that is guiding him. Or perhaps it could be neither of those things. In fact, there could be it could be something else altogether that causes those visions. But those seem to be the main things that the master talks about. And during his training that day, with sort of the basics of handling the tonfa, which can be used as much in defense as in attack, and that's one of the reasons Brucon's interested in it. During his training, he also notices that day that the master heads down to the lake with a sort of ceremonial bronze bowl and instrument, kind of like a mortar and pestle kind of feel to it, and heads down to the lake, scoops up some water into the bowl, and seems to be performing in a highly ritualized behavior. There seemed to be very much a sense of conviction with what she was doing, that it was important and it was necessary, which we found quite intriguing. Unfortunately, we don't cut back to Brucon again, so we haven't been able to find out what that is yet. But I'm sure we will do, perhaps even in the next session. So eventually, after spending the day setting fire to the grounds outside, Seth, Fleeting, and Naeris, who we then discovered afterwards are the three chaotic neutrals in the party, then, as if it wasn't already obvious, then decide to head inside for the evening, get some food and relax. However, it starts raining that evening, and they are interrupted a number of times. Firstly, by the housekeeper turning up to kind of make them some dinner. Secondly, by Malar, Leo, and Breena, who finally arrive back in town. They get back there along with. I think they get probably just around the same time, or maybe just ahead of the caravan full of the ex-prisoners with the Moonrunners, and follow. I think just before them, actually, Uncle Brinlan, Naeris' uncle, shows up and offers her a ring of protection. Is what he had managed to acquire, and gives to Naeris because he said that he wanted to protect her, and so this was the only way he could see that he could do that now, and offers her that ring. He's been told that she needs to attune to it. He should spend some time with it to make it work, but it should do the job, which she's very thankful for. And then finally, once everyone's in, then they hear a final knock at the door, and this time it is the red-faced and red-bearded Teenin Bluebeard, one of the twin dwarves that they met back in the Basilisk Cave a long time ago, and who has since been hanging around Hilberg, in part due to the fact that they were looking for their lady Helene Grenforth of the Crowflies, which you'll see on the map just up in the top area of the map. Anyway, top side of the map, top right of the map, the Crowflies is where Helene Grenforth and the two twin dwarves, the Bluebeards, are from. They were meant to be on an altruistic and diplomatic mission with Lady Helene before she was turned to stone and abducted. Fortunately, the party have managed to retrieve the Stone Maiden. Problem is that they haven't been able to turn her back from stone yet. It seems the Basilisk did a number on her, and so now the statue is currently held in the Temple of the Eight, not too far from their house, actually, in town. But also, so the dwarves are hanging around for that. But also, Teenin found an interest in the Creation Collective, a group of dwarven cultists who follow Fairfan, the dwarven creator god. Unfortunately, the views of Fairfan followers is that Fairfan is the one true god. The Eight probably are just facets of Fairfan, or in fact, they're just wrong. They're just complete. Their religion is wrong, our ideology is correct. And so he took a great interest in this group. However, he was arrested after some demonstrations and left in the lurch by the rest of these cultist friends of his. And so he is not best pleased with them. Anyway, he has arrived because he's worried about his brother and has got wind of a ritual that is happening this very evening. The cultists believe it is to bring back Fairfan himself to the world, but Teenan senses that this is not what's going to happen. He thinks that they've got this totally wrong, and there's probably a much more malevolent force that's going to be that may appear, and then pleads with the party for them to help. Thanks to the promise of some gold, Seth is on board with it. The rest of the party, I think, probably feel a little bit more obligation, ever so slightly more obligation to get involved than just for cold hard cash. But it's troubling as well, because even for Seth, because when he arrived back in the town, he thought he saw a face he recognised, and the name Alan came back to him, and eventually he realises that this is the same Alan who was one of the ruffians when they went through the village of Oroglor. Who had been told to try and beat up anyone asking about Fang in the village, and during the ensuing scuffle, accompanying the party was another bannerman from the Crowflies. This one being Sir Howland Cragmere, who is our first ever guest star here on the stream, which Tom Midgley. Thank you, Midge, for that again. If you're watching, we may well get you back at some point in the future, because that'd be great fun. But anyway, Howland disarms Alan by cutting his hand off, so Alan was the one who'd been most scarred, I'd say, physically and mentally from that encounter. But apparently Alan's back on the scene, and it seems that he was the one who took the hammer first of all, then managed to get away without getting away. So managed to enter the area of the alarm spell, take the hammer, and then get out without going through the alarm spell area, which really couldn't be done unless it was by magical means, perhaps. And has got back to Hilberg and delivered the hammer to the cultists, because apparently Fleeting's hammer, Fair's Storm, is an artifact which once belonged to Fairfan and is needed for the ritual to bring him back. So again, that ties Fleeting, and he's involved. He's going to get there because he wants his hammer back. And the rest of the party agree to go as well. To the old brewery, which is where the cultists have been congregating many times before. Teenin leads them there. He has a key into the brewery, as all the cultists do, but inside there are a couple of surprises. So so the first floor, the ground floor level, is still appears to be the remains of a brewery. All of the accoutrements are still in place there. There's a well to one side as well, leading down, which obviously is to get a supply of fresh water for the brewery, which Seth then decides that he's going to head down that way to try and flank round whatever's going on downstairs where the ritual's taking place, because he has a ring of feather falling, and so dropping down a shaft won't be a problem for him. It's a good plan. There is a big pool of water at the bottom, but he manages to drop in there without making too much noise, and then means he can scamper around and then use the message spell to communicate to the others what the situation is down there, what is taking place. The rest of the party, however, need to go down the central stairwell, which is through a door, and they think fine, apart from the door is locked. And when they approach it, a magic mouth asks them, who is the one true who is Fairfan, the god of the creator god. It's not really a riddle, but Teenin doesn't know exactly what the answer would be. The party think they don't guess correctly. Fortunately for Leoborin, who is the minus constitution member of the party, he's level 6 and has 13 hit points. Don't ask. Fortunately, him and Breena were persuaded by the party to stay behind at the house and watch it in case some of these other cultists who have been watching the house try to make a move while the rest of the party are away. So they're there keeping guard. Fortunately, they're not there then for what then takes place, because upon answering the question incorrectly, the glyph is set off on the door, and the entirety of the party upstairs are engulfed in just bolts of lightning and take quite a bit of damage, enough to probably kill Leoborin, actually. Anyway, they soon recover. Malar dispels the arcane lock on the door, breaks it open, and charges downstairs, coming face to face with the ritual taking place. There is a swirling portal at one end. Just beyond that is a raised dais with a brass statue, a brass 6-foot statue. It seems to be depicting the Fairfan himself. When he charges in there's also cultists kind of gathered around who are sort of praying, chanting, and their leader standing at the front holding the hammer, and smiles upon seeing the party enter, basically telling them that too late, slams down the hammer, and all hell breaks loose. The portal that was kind of incorporeal then becomes a much more solid form, and we see flaming heads of dwarves with flaming heads start to approach from the other side of the portal, about to come through. Not only that, but lightning sparks off of Fair's Storm, striking the brass statue, which bizarrely then brings it to life. This whole encounter with the Fairfan cultist has been something that has been there for a long time. They've been there since the party have been in Hilberg. They've known of these cultists, and I have had this kind of adventure in mind, although not everything had been put to paper, long before it actually transpired, because the party weren't interested in it. They were off doing other things, and they had enough kind of quests to deal with. So it just, from the hammer being retrieved by the cultists, then prompted this this ritual to happen. They've been wanting that hammer ever since they've seen it. They saw Fleeting with it the first time, I think, in the tavern in Hilberg. So it's been a while in the making. There's been a lot of seeding with that, and it was really rewarding for me as a DM to see that all come off. And not only that, but then to had Dan DK message me after the session, saying good job with that stuff. It was really nice to see that that's been in the background for a long time, and that you've been planning this. It was great. So that was very rewarding. And then obviously, in addition to that, this was going to be the entrance for another of our guest stars. This being my friend Araz, who you may recognize from James's superhero one shot on our YouTube channel, which came out last year at some point, a long time ago now. But we've been planning for ages for his character. Warforged aren't really a thing in the Manylands, but essentially that is what is created through this spark of lightning hitting the brass statue. And animating it, essentially. So he's kind of a cross between a Warforged and a Shield Guardian or an animated armor. He's more like a Warforged cross with animated armor. So he has certain perks that Warforged don't get, like having resistance to non-magical bludgeoning, slashing, and piercing damage. And a couple of other things. And then some drawbacks, like some anti-magic susceptibility. And such like that could render him immobile, but we thought it'd be a fun concept anyway, and Araz was on board with it. But also for the party, although as players they know that he's the guest star, as PCs they're like, well, is this friend or is this foe? And this prompts Malar to give a speech which I couldn't not give inspiration for it, even though it's directly robbing from a very well-known film, but it was just a great laugh. Here it is. That hits as well. It's just not that one.
And I say, oh, Fairfan the Creator, good evening. As a duly designated representative of the state of Bureaucrin, I order you to cease any and all supernatural activity and return forthwith to your place of origin or to the nearest convenient parallel dimension.
You don't have to say anything. Everything you say will be recorded. I love it. Absolutely love it.
That was just, couldn't not give inspiration for that. That was impeccable. But anyway, during the ensuing fight, so not only do they end up fighting the leader of the cultists, who they find out later is called Fairmonger Fulgrim, but they also these fiery dwarves, which are actually based on Azer from the player's from the monster manual, or Azer, or however you say it, from the elemental plane of fire. So these kind of bronze metal dwarves with fiery heads and beards and flaming warhammers as well. Very scary. So they're fighting those. These fire dwarves end up slaying some of the cultists. The cultists then end up fleeing, those that are left. Some of them also tried fighting the party before and got cut down in the process. These things happen. And then, if that wasn't bad enough, then this voice that had been pretending to be Fairfan this entire time reveals itself as a giant genie by the name of Kadir, the son of flame. And the party are immediately very worried about this huge genie appearing before them, red genie. It's an Efreet, don't you know? But thanks to a great shot from Seth with his crossbow, with a great throw, with a dagger by Seth, does enough damage that it knocks Kadir off his concentration, and so he reduces down to just a large creature rather than a huge creature. But Kadir is very, very powerful, and in the fight, he with just hurling one ball of flame at Seth knocks him unconscious. I think at another point he throws one at Malar or cuts at him with a sword a couple of times, and he goes unconscious. He's just dominating the party. And then to make things even worse, he then summons a fire elemental into the fray. And this fire elemental, fortunately, the concentration is broken quite early, but that means that the elemental doesn't disappear, unlike some concentration spells. It actually means it's no longer under the genie's command and will just fight anyone. But unfortunately for the fire elemental, it was up against Glaive, the brass statue, who was not named at this point. He did not have a name, but he was carrying a very large glaive. And when you have 3 attacks with your glaive, 2 plus a bonus action, plus you then action surge, well, this happens.
That hits as well. It's just a dwarf statue mincing machine.
And that is 9 points of slashing damage.
Okay, so just to recap here, it started with full health. You have done 66 points of damage across your 5 attacks. It's just ridiculous. It's like
That's
7
the way to
levels
do
of
it.
ridiculous, but fighters
Where
are
have you
fighters.
been all our lives?
One thing to note as well is that he could have done more damage, I think, because I think with Great Weapon Master, I think he could have gone for the optional -5 to the attack, +10 to the damage, I think. So he may well have been able to do even more stupid damage than he already did. But that wasn't for me to keep track of. But like a serious amount of damage to that fire elemental, and eventually it was smote as well. He was also the one that appeared to slay the cult leader during the fight as well. But Kadir, it seems, is dominant. Looks around at this party that are barely holding on, and demands them one last time. He demands them throughout to serve him, but eventually, seeing them all falling at his feet, either from being unconscious or otherwise just struggling to hang on, Naeris hiding in a doorway out of the way, that sort of thing. He grows weary of this fight and decides instead to that they're not worthy of this fight, and decides to head back to the elemental plane of fire, saying when they are worthy, they can find him there. Fine, I'm off. Which, on the one hand, must be quite relieving for the party, and on the other, a little bit humiliating. But that leads us into the final session, session 65, where the party are left with the 2 dwarves, the twin brother Turin, the nicer of the 2 dwarves, was there during the ritual and was just shaking in his boots because he thought he was going to have to go through the portal as others before him had been sent through and then never returned. Perhaps they returned into those fire dwarves, those Azer that they met in the fight. But he's reunited with his brother Tinin, and they are all face to face with this brass statue, which has literally just been born during the fight. Essentially, it's been brought to life, and so has a very basic understanding of life. It doesn't have a name at this point. It is later. He later comes up with his own name, but we'll get to that. While they're having some discussion with this brass statue, trying to find out more about it, about the cultists, about anything else that they can, Seth decides to go on a scavenging run as a rogue is wont to do, looking for the treasure. And he finds inside one of these tiny huts that are to one side of the, maybe not a tiny hut, but these small huts that are to one side of the room, of the chamber, finds some interesting icons carved into the wall, and using his thieves' cant and pirate's code, delineates what it means and finds a tiny little chest that looks kind of made of expensive materials, along with a normal-sized key, and as well as that, another map, which appears to be a treasure map leading to, presumably, the treasure where that key fits. Unfortunately, he could not recognize the landmarks on the map, and so therefore didn't know where to start with that. But he did he did copy the map, so he has that for a reference if he wants to try and look for that treasure later on. But still, an intriguing find nonetheless. Meanwhile, everyone then decides to go back to the house. It's late. They've all taken a lot of damage and drained their resources. It's probably time to go to bed. On the way back, they have a discussion about names, and this is how it goes.
For instance, this house here probably has a name. Your weapon has a name. It is a glaive. I myself have an axe, or a battle axe, if you will.
Oh, well, I have a mace.
He says,
in fact,
sorry, go on.
No, after you.
He at the mention of the word glaive, he says, glaive. He turns to Malar. Glaive.
Yes, mace, glaive, Malar.
I am now called Glaive. It is my name.
Oh, well, that's, certainly is unique.
Let him have it, Malar. Let him have it. Let him have it.
Yes, indeed, Ms. Naeris.
Yeah, so eventually he decides that he's going to be called Glaive. That's his name. And the group also discuss. There's a bit of theology. There's general discussions about life. Kind of having this new impressionable person prompts a lot of discussion. Also about pronouns and like what Glaive should be referred to as. It's there's a whole lot of crap to talk about there. Anyway, they get back to the house. Meet up with Leoborin and Breena eventually, although Leoborin didn't make himself known because he just had his flock of familiars flying around at first, looking at the party, causing much confusion as to why there were owls just flying around the house and looking at them, or flying into the house and what have you. But anyway, eventually they get together and can settle down for the evening. There is much conversation to be had with the dwarves, with Glaive, and with the rest of the party, really, to take stock and figure out what their next move is, because they've come back to the town for a reason. They came not only to get Naeris, but also to carry out some of these other niggling quests that they've had for a while. For instance, turning Lady Helene Grenthorpe back from stone would be one, and Malar is aware that he was sent, that the higher ups in the clergy, the chosen of the Burikrin converted for the Eight, his superior had agreed to send him a scroll of greater restoration as a kind of test for Malar to see if he can use that to bring the lady back to life, and so that should be on its way, if it hasn't already arrived. They've also got the lycanthropic charge. That's Greta Grouse of Loranlas, the lady they saved from the werewolf banquet, essentially, as it turned out, at Rackfell Manor some time ago. So they're the one. She's the one that she needs to be cured of that curse, and that's what they're trying to brew the potion for. It's an ancient curse, and so remove curse doesn't seem to work on that disease. But there are more important things for some of the party to take care of, and Naeris just wants to rest and relax, and then perhaps, after trancing for 4 hours, could then start to attune to the ring that she was gifted by her uncle. However, Glaive, in the meantime, copying Malar, who's trying to shoo one of the owls from the house, then tries to grab one himself.
Just brings her hands down and fires firebolt at Seth.
Oh, actually, that's a different bit altogether. But he tries to grab it. It doesn't work. He misses the owl, hits the sofa, which Naeris is trancing on. She just moves to one side. So I has to shrug it off and just carry on trancing. Just don't let it get to you. But after Seth continues to pester her because he has an item that he thinks she can use, well, the inevitable happens.
Just brings her hands down and fires firebolt at Seth. Cantrip. Just go. Yeah. Full on firebolt at Seth.
Breena counterspells.
Oh, shit.
And so Naeris is standing there on fire. Probably the sofa's catching fire now. This is very likely, but...
Oh my god, yes. No. Yes, this is happening.
And she's just staring at Seth. Just nothing.
Does Malar smell smoke?
Not a word.
Yep. You smell the smoke pretty quickly. At first you think it might be Glaive having eaten part of the furniture, but no, it turns out it's the sofa is on fire.
I spring up
Naeris.
and run into that room, and I cast Create Water, but
no.
in that room.
Oh my god.
And then leave.
Oh my fucking god.
Yep.
I hate you.
That would so...
Yeah, so Malar interjects there, as usual, trying to break them up. And yeah, it's another fight, isn't it? Fleeting also then gets to reacquaint himself with Fair's Storm and start attuning to it again. But the night is not over for Glaive because he is. I need to clip this. I haven't done it yet. But he is tasked with some homework because that's what you need in your first day in existence by Malar. Malar gives him his tome on the 8 and asks Glaive to read it because Glaive seemed to be interested in stuff about the gods and how he came to be and the theological discussion around that really. And so he's tasked with doing that. Leoborin and Breena, meanwhile, have been examining him to try and work out more about the nature of this being. They recognise that he's magical, but not how the magic, how he's been brought to life, how that magic came about. And also, Malar learns that Glaive can't really eat or drink. He can try, but it doesn't have the effect that you would expect it to. In fact, it's like there's a furnace burning within him, and you just throw stuff onto that bonfire and it just burns up and just smoke erupts from his mouth. It's just not the best thing to do, but a little bit of trial and error. And then Breena kind of helps Glaive with writing his essay overnight. Glaive goes full student. He pulls an all-nighter. He writes his essay, writes everything that needs to be done, comes up with his argument, and so on from his studies. And then takes a particular interest in Alusha of the 8 because she doesn't seem to take a particular form or takes many different forms and goes by many different names. And he's just encountered names for the first time today and finds that all very fascinating. He finishes his essay, but by the time he does, he ends up, as soon as he's finished, he ends up powering down and just staying still in place at the table with his essay in front of him. In the morning, after some other shenanigans during the evening, wake up in the morning. Naeris and Seth are the first up. Just Naeris taking some peaceful time away from the rest of the group to just have some time to herself, which we all need at times. Making some breakfast, just having a quiet moment of solitude, which is then disturbed by Seth as he comes down. And then shortly after that, Jackburn knocks at the door, inquiring about the promise from the party, or the idea the party have proposed about him essentially buying the house off of them or renting the house off of them, turning it into an inn, and opens up the discussion there. He also produces a tiny chest similar to the one that Seth has, and says that's how he stores all his wares, all his goods. And with those negotiations surrounding the future of the brand of Flaming Jacks, is where we left things in the campaign, and that's where we'll be picking up things next time. So I guess some overall thoughts on the last 5 sessions. So I've learned a lot in DMing in the time that I've been doing it, and it's interesting for me to compare how I was doing it at the start compared to where we are now. One of the big takeaways where I feel that I've improved, or at least have learned, is from it's almost stepping back and letting go a bit. When I first started DMing, I was very precious about the world and the lore and all that sort of thing, and I still am to an extent. You've got to have an awareness of these things in your storytelling, but I was especially at first, I think at times could be almost verging on railroading the party into what way they should go, and so there wasn't that freedom of choice as much, or there was maybe an illusion of choice, but it was obvious that it was an illusion, whereas and so it felt like the party were going through the story, but they weren't having a meaningful impact on the world, or at least that's, I think, at times the impression I've got. However, in these last 5 sessions, letting go of the reins a little bit and just letting those horses just continue where they're going to go, has resulted in some of these big impactful moments. So I said earlier, as an example of Flaming Jacks, of them suggesting that he could buy the house and he could turn that into the inn. I didn't come up with that. That's a fantastic idea, and it looks like that's what we're rolling with. That's certainly what Jackman wants to roll with. And then in addition to that, I think Glaive is a prime example of that, with our guest star, with Ares playing the Dwarf Forged fighter, because it was a hard role-playing challenge for him. Ares isn't an actor anyway, but he enjoys playing D&D, and to ask him to play a character who's essentially born in the game is quite a challenge. Not having past experience to build upon, so experiencing everything for the first time is a difficult thing to role play, and I think he did an amazing job with it. And equally, or even more importantly to that, he was open to suggestions. It's kind of one of the skills you get from improv, another passion of mine from the past, and apparently from the present as well. But being able to take an idea and run with it, and Glaive is a prime example of that, because essentially he had no notions of theology and things like that, but as soon as he's brought into the world, he's in front of Malar and he's in front of Teenan, both clerics and both who have views upon the gods. And then Breena as well, to a lesser extent, also has her views on the gods and experience with the gods. And so they start talking to him about it. It sparks an interest within him, and then it looks like his character is going to start going in a direction based upon this experience. And I think that's great. That's amazing. That's great character development. That's what we want to see at the table. Obviously, a unique circumstance for that character, but for every character, their experiences should help shape their character. And backstory is kind of the experience they've already had that shaped their character. But during the course of the campaign, their experiences in that campaign should also then reflect in their character and may change aspects of their character. And so, seeing that in real time with Glaive was a real pleasure. Reminded me of just being able to, as I said, step back for a moment and just have a laugh with it, just enjoy it, roll with it. Most importantly, just have fun. Yes, as the DM, I need to bring some consistency. I need to bring the lore and the overall story. But within that massive framework, there is so much potential for the players themselves to take the lead on where things are going, to direct us on where the adventure goes next. Just all these different aspects, and it's been a fun experience. Obviously, we've doing some upgrades tech-wise back here as well. Hence the green screen for me now. So yeah, it's just every day is a school day during the stream and the campaign, and long may it continue. So that about wraps up my campaign diary for the last 5 sessions. There'll be another one, of course, after the next 5 sessions, so probably in a few months' time now. But join us on Monday on our YouTube channel. If you're not already subscribed to us, do so, because then you'll be reminded of our premiere of our next session of The Cage. As you can see, the window has just come up. Our next session is going live on Monday at 6 p.m. on YouTube, premiering there. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not already, so you don't miss that. And we'll be back here live on Twitch for the next session in the Manylands. That's on Monday the 22nd. You've still got a week to enter this giveaway. I'll be announcing the winner then. That's Monday 22nd of March at 6 p.m. Anyway, whatever you're up to for the rest of today, and of course throughout this weekend, have a good one, be safe, and yes, I don't know what else to say. Enjoy yourselves, look after each other, and stay safe. Bye.